So let's get right into a question that's probably on your mind. What's the real key to success? You hear all sorts of things, right? Some people will tell you it's all about mastering a specific skill. Others swear it's just pure, unbreakable focus. And look, they're not wrong. But what if there's something deeper? Something that, well, holds all of that up? The philosopher Jim Rohn really nailed it. He said, the most important project you will ever work on is yourself, right up until your very last day. You see, that constant process of building you, that's your armor. It's what protects you from failure, from setbacks, from anything life decides to throw at you. So that's what we're going to get into today. 6 powerful rules for building yourself, inspired by some seriously impressive people. Okay, let's get right into it. Rule number 1 is all about getting a handle on that voice in your head, the story you tell yourself when things, inevitably go wrong. So check this out. There was this guy, Epictetus. He was born a slave. And one day, his master, in a horrible fit of rage, brutally broke his leg, leaving him with a limp for the rest of his life. But here's the amazing part. Epictetus absolutely refused to see himself as a victim. Instead, he completely reframed it. He looked at his broken leg and saw it as proof that while his body could be broken, his will, his inner spirit, that was untouchable, unbreakable. And that story perfectly illustrates this wild idea. Your mind is basically a meaning-making machine. Think about it. Something happens, right? And between that event and how you feel about it, your mind builds a little bridge. It assigns a meaning. If that meaning is negative, well, your whole story becomes negative, and you just get stuck. But, and this is the game changer, if you can consciously change that meaning, you change everything. It's not just some nice idea either. Studies have actually shown that this kind of reframing can slash your stress levels by up to 30%. So how do you actually do this? It's a super simple 3-step process. First, ask, what happened? Just the facts, no drama. Okay, I'm stuck in traffic. Simple. Step 2, how is this for my benefit? Force yourself to find an upside. Well, I guess this is some unexpected time to myself. And then step 3, what action can I take? Find something constructive. You know what? I can practice some box breathing to chill out, or maybe listen to that podcast I've been meaning to get to. See how that works? You just took back control of the story. Okay, so once you've got a handle on your inner narrative, you can start dealing with the outside world a little differently. And that brings us right to rule number 2. This one is huge. It's not about running away from pressure, it's about learning how to use it to grow. Let me tell you about this writer, Anthony. He was completely overwhelmed. I mean, working 2 jobs, raising his younger siblings, he had this dream of being a writer, but he was just crushed, exhausted. He felt like he had 0 time. So he did something kind of crazy. He created this intense, non-negotiable rule for himself. Every single night, no matter how tired he was, he had to sit down for a writing sprint. He manufactured his own pressure. And guess what? It worked. That self-imposed stress completely transformed him. The guy went on to write 47 books. What he did is actually a perfect real-world example of a scientific concept called hormesis. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Something that's toxic in a high dose can actually be beneficial in a low, controlled dose. It's like a vaccine for your mind. By giving yourself these small, intentional doses of pressure, or even boredom, you're literally forcing your brain to get stronger, to evolve, to rewire itself. And here's the key difference, right? It's all about where the pressure comes from. When your boss throws an impossible deadline at you, what happens? Your ego rebels. It fights back. It says, no way. But when you are the one setting the challenge, when you create your own pressure, suddenly the ego is on your side. It sees a chance to grow, to evolve. It leans into the challenge instead of pushing it away. So choosing your own challenge is awesome, but we all know sticking to it is the hard part. Which brings us to rule number 3, and this one is about the surprising power of micro-commitments and how just a tiny little lapse can cause everything to come crashing down. Get this story. There's this world-famous tightrope walker. For years, this guy walks across a wire 150 feet up in the air, never falls. Not once. Then a psychologist convinces him to try it with a safety net below, just for an experiment. And you know what happened? That was the very first time he ever fell. When they asked him why, he said something incredible. Without the net, his brain knew there was 0 room for error. It was 100% committed. But the second that net was there, his brain subconsciously went, we can save like 1% of our effort here.
And that tiny 1%, that was all it took for him to lose his balance.
So how do we make sure our brain is giving that full 100%? Here are 3 little mental commands you can use right before you start anything important. First, say to yourself, now this is it. That just kills procrastination right in its tracks. The time is now. Second, hard. You're telling yourself, for this next chunk of time, I'm pushing my limits. And third, excellent work. You're deciding right up front that just good enough is not on the table today.
Okay, so if you're really committed and you're really pushing yourself, you're gonna fail. It's just part of the deal. And that's what rule number 4 is all about. It's not about trying to avoid failure. It's about learning to fail faster. Think about Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, right? Well, in his career, he missed over 9,000 shots. 9,000. And he lost over 300 games. He even said he was trusted with the game-winning shot dozens of times and missed.
But here's the thing that made him Jordan. Every single one of those failures wasn't a defeat. It was a data point. It didn't break him. It shaped him. Each missed shot taught him something new about performing under pressure. It made him tougher, smarter, and it's what led him to 6 NBA championships. Failure isn't the end. It's just the feedback you need to get better. You know, someone like Elon Musk, a guy who has had some very public, very expensive failures, has a system for this. After any setback, he asks 2 simple questions. 1, where exactly did I take a risk here? And 2, okay, so what do I absolutely have to change next time? That's it. It's not about blame. It's a simple, logical way to make sure every failure makes you smarter. So how you handle your own failures is one thing, but how you handle criticism or just intense pressure from the outside, that's a true test of character. And that's our 5th rule, mastering your response when you feel like the world is coming at you. Let me tell you an incredible story about Sardar Patel, an Indian statesman. He's in court in the middle of this intense legal argument. A messenger runs in and hands him a telegram. He stops, reads it, folds it up, puts it in his pocket, and then just continues arguing his case for hours, totally focused. It was only after the trial was over for the day that people found out what was in that telegram. It was news that his wife had just passed away. I mean, that level of composure is incredible, and it teaches us something so important. When you complain, when you make excuses, you're just leaking energy. You're basically telling the world, I'm weak. But a person of real strength, they don't waste energy on that. They respond with quiet, calm, focused action. Believe me, what you do in those moments speaks so much louder than any excuse you could ever make. And that kind of intense, focused action, that leads us perfectly into our 6th and final rule. And this one is all about telling the difference between just being busy and being truly masterful. Look, there's a huge difference between the two. You have surface learning, scrolling through articles, watching a quick tutorial. It feels productive, right? It keeps you busy. But then there's depth. That's where you pick one thing, one single craft, and you just go deep. You refine it day after day after day. That's what makes you rare. That's what creates real mastery. So here's a challenge for you. Try a 30-day depth challenge. Just pick one skill you actually care about. And for the next 30 days, give it your deep, focused attention every single day. No distractions. And just ask yourself this one little question at the end of each session. How can I get just a tiny bit better tomorrow? That's it. That is the real secret to growth. All right, so let's run through them one more time. The 6 rules for building yourself. First, control your inner story. Second, use pressure to evolve. Third, master your micro-commitments for 100% focus. Fourth, fail faster so you can learn faster. Fifth, choose silence and action over excuses. And finally, number 6, cultivate depth. Don't just stay busy. Look, these aren't just cool ideas to think about. They're a blueprint. They are the tools you need to build a stronger version of yourself. So the only question left, really, is you've got the rules. When are you going to start building?